So while I've enjoyed the side characters in Shikimori, they're not to the point outside of Kamiya, because Kamiya's story and what was told in the prior episodes is honestly, I think, my favorite part of this show. But in terms of what the side casts besides her have offered, I think is a worthwhile group of friends that entertain me, but not necessarily ones that I would say are the star of this show. It's typically like the Shikimori as well as Izumi duo, with them being an extra seasoning, and they're not the main course, right? But I would honestly argue between these last two episodes, I really feel like they kind of grew into their own people. Like, it kind of felt like they had a bit more backbone to offer rather than just kind of floating around what the characters are doing. In the case of episode 9, you have the whole idea of, yes, Kami is a part of the group, but mostly it's like the idea of almost the aftermath of this girl who feels like, well, I can't have the boy I like, the, so-called girlfriend of said boy is really nice to me, I really respect her, but, I'm a loner and people leave me alone. And one of their friends ends up being kind of like one of the reasons why she kind of feels accepted. And you feel like this sense of like, okay, they're really making her feel special. And then the case of Ina, who kind of has been the like romance rival that really Shikimori's never had to worry about. And even though a lot of her like jealous anger was jealous anger, I like the fact that they even just tie it together with the whole idea of like she has trouble communicating with her brother, which then in return could also make it so ultimately she doesn't know how to communicate and show compassionate things to him. And the fact that, he's actually been, I'd argue, the one character who seems to be a bit more front and center, not afraid to be in the middle of these two rather than the females who kind of like float in the distance and seem a little more kind of flirtatious / blushing in awe of the cute shit they see. But it was still nice to get more kind of like connection and build up between those two, because you always felt like there was this temper, and obviously it was one-sided, but it kind of felt like you got a bit more resolution there. So when we do leave episode 12, it does feel like they had a path of growth there, even if it was a little shorter than some of the other plot lines. But I think in terms of who stole the show out of the sidecast, it's this latest episode with Hachimitsu, who basically just kind of feels like the most laid-back character you would see in an anime season. She has a damn good heart, she definitely cares about her friends, but if you're telling her she has to run in a track and field race or, pass the baton, do gymnastics, anything that requires effort, she's melting to the floor and wishing anyone would take the burden away. And I like the fact that because she's someone who's so carefree, she doesn't really assert herself. She doesn't really put herself out of the way to make others happy in the way that I think the other sidecasts would. And I think the idea of having a teamwork thing where they each have a section that they have to run before they pass the baton, and having someone like her and Izumi, you're basically guaranteeing a loss. Izumi's gonna trip on his face a billion times, and she has absolutely no physique. She's not athletic. Even if she did put her mind to it, she's gonna be out of breath before she takes a couple of steps. But also, she just doesn't have that same drive. But I like that over the course of this kind of track and field day, right? The fact that she gains more and more confidence to the point that even after falling on her face, she doesn't give up because of that thought. What would their faces look like if we come out of this one victorious? And I thought what they were going to do was that they would come in second place. I'd say that's probably the more typical cliche plotline of like, they think they can win because they try real hard. They don't win, but they're not disappointed in the way that friendships ruin. More so, let's do better next year. So I thought that's what was going to happen. So I was actually pleasantly surprised that because of all of them actually trying their hardest, they ended up winning. It's not like, sure, you can make the argument that if you replace the two weakest links, which, unfortunately it is these two, and replace them with anyone average, they would have won without having to push themselves that much. But they're a close group of friends. And I love that for an episode, especially watching these past two back-to-back, it felt like it was trying to say that yes, the main couple are the main course, the main entree that you're going to consume watching this. But it's not just like the sidecast is just the seasoning anymore. They're more a nice side dish at this point, rather than just kind of being there and floating in the distance. The fact that they all gave it their absolute best is the reason they won. And the fact that they wouldn't want to win with another person, they would want to win together sort of a thing. I thought it was a great message overall and a great directing choice to make us say like, goddamn, coming to the close of this season, we have 2 episodes left. it really, to me anyway, feels like I could leave episode 12 and never pick this anime up again. Not because it's bad, like they could say, hey, we're doing 24 more episodes. But the reason I say that is that it just feels like because they started them in a relationship, and because we got that amazing emotional growth over the past few weeks, and just giving the side characters their time to flourish, it's hard not to feel like it's one of those shows that could easily work as a 12-episode anime, where you didn't need to watch more even if they gave it to you. Now, obviously, I can only, wait and see. Like, they could say, we're doing more, and, there's this amazing art coming up, and sure, I might try it. But as it stands, it feels like I could leave this show with episode 12 and not need to touch more, because it just feels like it could be a good stopping point, because we're not going to see their entire lives, right? There's going to be a lot to their lives that we'll never see, even if we adapted the full manga, right? Because ultimately, they're gonna live another 80 years probably and, have their adventures. But it feels like because you started them in a relationship, you could easily leave the show in the middle of their school life after seeing great moments with all the side characters. Kami, as an example, stole the show in a lot of ways for those couple of episodes. And the fact that it really does feel like Shikimori and Izumi are just built to last, it just brings a grin to your face. I think the comedy is usually pretty smile-worthy. It's not one of those kind of comedy directions that makes you bust out loud, I find. But when I see the goofy faces, when I see the shift in the art style, it does bring a grin to my face, and I find it amusing. But really, this is one of those shows that it does feel like the sweetness is the main thing you're looking for. While yes, it can be silly, it can be funny, it's really the sweetness of how the characters link up together, whether it's Sick Izumi and just the idea of, still having Best Bro deliver his homework, the medicine, whatever else he needs, to even just a girl who's never really felt like she's put any real effort past getting up out of bed in the morning and just kind of going with the flow and being the most mellow character, to running her ass off just so they would be happy. It feels like the characters they want to melt your heart more often than they want to make you laugh, and I think that's perfectly acceptable. I think often when these shows come out, it does feel like one side overpowers the other, and for me, it's sometimes hard to find the anime that hit the right spot I want it to. A show like Shikimori, I don't need it to make me laugh, or I think the comedy is the best part. So having it just be, Diabetes the anime at times, I'm perfectly content with that, while having some badass Shikimori faces and some goofy faces to kind of hold us over until the next kind of sweetness overlord, or at least that's how I feel. I really enjoyed watching these two episodes back to back. I'll probably do it for episodes 11 and 12 as well to conclude this, but I'm excited to see how this one's going to wrap up, so thoughts either on this latest one or last week's down below, favorite character as it stands, let me know. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you're new around here. Till next time everyone, please take care and have a good one.